the current statuses of health right now, we have high levels of obesity, high levels of diabetes, cancer, heart disease. These rates are, autism, dementia. These rates seem to be at a higher rate than ever. And there's a tremendous amount of data and research trying to figure out kind of where it comes from. And although there may be many entry points into this, to the correction of this, one of the major things is our food source. Our food source, there's a tremendous amount of research and knowledge and evidence that points to the quality of the foods that people are consuming are being very low. So most nutritional values in the foods people eat are very low. The quality of the food has been highly processed. There are artificial ingredients added to it. And again, research shows tremendous correlation with these processed foods, these ingredients that are low nutrition. And long-term studies show that the long-term addition of this into your life is where these, correlates with these health problems of diabetes, obesity, cancer, and so on. And so there seems to be a codependent relationship with the food producers, the consumer, and even the medical community. So you can't blame any one of those, because you could say, well, big food has this predatory attitude, and they're producing foods that are really bad for us, but they're not under any particular obligation for your health. Their stated purposes is to make money and to sell a product and to fill a niche. So they're finding ways within the law and within our current knowledge base to produce an item that has, for them, shelf life, consistency, and appeal to the consumer. And so that's their role. So the government's role, the oversighting bodies, the FDA, the EPA, the regulatory bodies, their job is to look at these informations and say, like, what does the research show? What do we know about these ingredients? Are they truly harmful? Personally, I don't know their bar. As an observation, it appears that they're looking for causation. They're looking for causation, saying, like, okay, this substance causes, this health problem in a person. The red dye is linked, causative to cancer. This chemical causes this. And so it seems to be, if they can't prove that causation, even though it's loosely connected, we can say, yes, this probably does this. I find that they're free to pass it. And, we can get into the theories of lobbyists and so on, but just on a base level, that's what it appears to be. So then the consumer, trusting the governments, having done the research, the companies wouldn't want to kill their customers. So we kind of have this sense of safety, like these products are okay. And so individual will go to the store, and since it's in the store, there's assumption that it's safe. So they start consuming these products. And of course, now that food science triggers, and your nervous system and your hormonal systems trigger when you have foods that have that perfect ratio of fat to salt to sugar, that are hyper palatable, it's called. It triggers that perfect balance. When the foods have a high dopamine trigger, it promotes us to do more and eat more of it, right? So we now have these emotional, when the foods are something that have a long history, right? Something that maybe you eaten when you ate when you were a child, and you made attachments to them as a child. foods that bring you relief from stressors like sugars and salts, foods that give you comfort, foods that, right? So now we're looking for these things. The ease of eating the food, right? You can open a package, just eat it. There's no cooking, there's no prep time. All these factors come into play when an individual goes to buy them. So now the individual buys this food, which empowers the food company to say, well, our sales are up, let's produce more. So now that the products are being purchased, the companies are empowered to say, well, people must like these. And now the company has a growth factor and an expansion, then it has more ability to promote to the public and say, listen, we have all these things. They also have more ability to protect themselves from government oversights, and they start to get longevity, which gives them a consideration from the governments of what's called generally assumed safe. So their products are assumed safe, so testing is less. So now you have a consumer consuming these products at 20 to 30% of their diet is made up of these high processed foods. Research shows us 20 to 30% of the diet is made of these highly processed or ultra processed foods, which have zero to little nutritional value, introduce lots of ingredients that are foreign to the body and cause the body to struggle in ways of hormonal disruption, neurological disruption, cancer causing. Right? And so a lifestyle of these products, research is very clear that a lifestyle of these products leads us to the diseases that we're trying to avoid. But then we're empowered by going to the doctor, and at the medical level, they're not encouraging. There isn't a culture encouraging a removal of these ingredients. There's a culture of, you now have high blood pressure, you now have cholesterol issues, you have diabetes. There's a kind of surface level speech and education about these foods, but most of the education, most of the research data, trillions of dollars is going into research and development of treatments for now these diseases. So now the individual is not there's no pressure to remove these chemicals and products from their life, because they now have a treatment, a drug that treats the symptom and allows them to continue with their behaviors and further push these diseases in the wrong direction. And so while I don't believe that there's a secret cabal of the food industries, the government agencies, and the drug companies, look, I believe that they are supporting each other through us. And so I also don't believe that there's going to be a top-down change. I don't believe the government is going to all of a sudden go strike a line and say these chemicals are absolutely banned and you must get rid of them immediately, forcing the food companies to change and then supplying us good foods. I believe the process is going to happen from us, because what we do with our dollars, we go in and we buy these foods and we empower the companies. So if we stop buying those foods and stop buying more whole foods, more vegetables, now you're going to see a shift away from these chemicals, because the companies are going to start losing their money and the empowerment. At the same time, that's going to force the government to start to look into it, because now we as the consumer is starting to say, listen, we're not satisfied with this. And of course the government is for the people, and then they start to react and they start looking into it and going, well, why are these people not eating this? Why is this happening? And then they'll maybe have a little bit stronger bar. So it's up to us, it's up to you. So you and I alone can't change the world, but you and I with millions of our consumers can speak and can make a change. So not only are you changing the health of your family and your life, and the research shows that when you make those changes, that your health, your symptoms, your chances of getting symptoms, your children's chances of getting symptoms tremendously decreases. And so we have that power. So not only are you going to help yourself, but now you're going to help the culture and future generations, and helping your children and helping your grandchildren and teaching them to do a better job.